Hi guys, my name is Karthik and I am from executeautomation.com and welcome to another video of our EA Weekend video series. And in this video, we are actually not going to talk something about automation testing tools or techniques and kind of stuff. Rather, we are going to answer one of the most commonly asked questions in the field of automation, which is, I'm new to automation testing and where should I start? I got this question many times and I have explained this pretty much on their email. But this is kind of a trending topic in recent days in LinkedIn. I have seen this many times and there were so many comments in that post. But I thought, why not just create a video and answer a more detailed explained video to answer the actual question, which is where should I start the automation testing? But before actually answering this, where should I start the automation testing? Let's ask a few questions that you need to ask yourself before answering this question. So this question is for you before you can actually get into the automation itself, which is, do I have the mindset to learn? So here, the learning is not just related to automation testing. It can be a learning on a new pattern of the testing, or it can be a new technology or method, or it can be a CICD or microservices, or it can be a new programming language, or it can be of anything which is related to automation. So you should have the mindset to learn and grow. That's the only way that you can actually get into automation testing. That's what I feel. And then, which programming language I'm more comfortable with? Do I have the enthusiasm to break the system? I mean, we can talk about these points in a more detailed manner in our upcoming slides, but yeah, these are something that you need to ask. And then, am I ready to redo if I fail in one path? So these are the questions that basically you need to ask before we can actually answer the original question. So learning is what gonna make you get where you are from to wherever you want to. Well, there was no such quote actually exist on the internet. I just made it up and I thought this is what has made in my life, like how I could able to learn and achieve something. So learning is one of the key thing for anything that you actually do in your life. It can be automation, or it can be driving a car, or it can be getting used to talk with people, like how that you really talk. So even while talking to a person, you really need to learn of how that you can talk to a person in a particular place, in a particular given point of time. So learning is everything actually. Well, as I said, before actually talking about learning, let's see how the technology change has actually happened. Technology is changing rapidly and so is our life. I still remember while I came out of college by 2006, there was this phone, which is Nokia 1100, which was very, very famous, even though it was released like 3-4 years before I was completing my college. But this phone was still the most famous phone by the time, because guys or folks like me, they try to send SMS and all those clicky keypad kind of stuff which is available in this phone was very, very interesting. We were using this phone. It was one of the best robust phone we have ever seen, and even Nokia should admit on that. But now we all know that the technology is so rapidly changing and no one right now actually use this keyboard based phone, and even I really don't have this kind of phone. I have switched completely to iPhone X. So you can see that this is how the technology has transitioned right now. If we relate the same technology change with the testing tools, while I was actually working with QTP on 2006, it was really great. But people like to see something open source, easy to use, and hence Selenium came into the picture. And this is the only tool even right now on the planet which does the real-time browser manipulation without doing any kind of emulation. But still, we like to see different kinds of tools, and that's why there are so many tools coming in the market like Cypress, Puppeteer, Playwright, TestProject, TestCafe, RestSharp, and more like this. Since there are many different tools and technologies are coming into automation, the learning of these tools are never gonna change. As the technology is changing, like new UI-based applications are coming in, these automation testing tools are still gonna evolve like this. And that's what I'm saying, that the technology change is directly proportional to the number of automation testing tool evolving on the market. So if there is going to be a new programming language or maybe a new UI interface like Blazor of Microsoft, if it is not going to render something like a DOM, of course it is doing it right now, but let's assume that if it is not going to do something like that, then probably there is going to be a new automation testing tool coming up in the market which is going to support this particular UI interface. So this is how the technology is going to keep changing. And that's the reason if you are going to get into automation, get ready to learn a lot. I mean, really a lot. You should keep learning. If not, you're not going to get into automation. And that's why before answering this original question, learning is something very, very important. And that's the reason I actually created what is called as this learn path to tell you what are the different automation testing tools available on the market and how these automation testing tools are categorized based on the technology, something like mobile automation, web automation, and then API automations and CICD DevOps and microservices and different languages. So, I mean, there are even more that I have really talked about, but I have just categorized some of the most common which is used among the community. The next question, which is programming language to choose. So, programming languages to learn is also one of the most important stuff right now. There are many programming languages created now, and every testing tools comes with different language binding support. While I was using QTP in 2006, it was just VB script language. Then Selenium came, as I told you, there was a whole new ball game, and it supported languages such as Java, Perl, Python, Ruby, and even C#, which was kind of beta stage for a long time. Since these new languages are going to come in, you have the responsibility to at least learn one language. I mean, at least one language in a more robust manner, because that's going to be very, very helpful. And again, almost all the languages right now are in any sense support the object-oriented programming. So conceptually, all these languages are going to work pretty much exactly the same way, except that their syntaxes are going to be a little bit different. So if you ask me the programming languages to learn for automation testing, I just made like a top 3 languages in this order of fashion, like Java, always number 1, and then C#, and then JavaScript. Even though I'm too much inclined towards C#, I know that a lot of companies are still more inclined toward Java. So Java is probably one of the programming language on the top list on the community side. And I have released a couple of courses on the same to talk about the C# for automation testing and TypeScript fundamentals. So if you're going to get started, then you can probably learn these languages before you can actually start the automation. Well, that's about the programming language department. And because these programming languages are coming in, there are many different tools on these languages as well. So before you actually get started with the automation, and because there are so many programming languages available, you also need to see what are the different tools and technology stacks are being supported by these programming languages. For example, for C#, you can see there are tools such as Appium, Selenium, Xamarin.UI Test, REST-Sharp, Mock, SpecFlow, and Montebank, and many different tools available, which is actually very, very specific for C# language binding. These are for the web-based technology as well as for the mobile automation testing. So this is the language binding, which is kind of very, very common in the community side. And then the Java language binding. You can see it has their own tool supports, just that you can see that most of the time, some of the most popular automation testing tool does support all the language bindings. And that's why you can see that the Selenium and Appium and even Cucumber, these are all applicable for not just for Java, but also for C# and for JavaScript and any other programming languages. So these are the tools that are very, very common. And then for JavaScript, it's a whole new game, guys. It has Selenium, Cucumber, Cypress, Testim, Puppeteer, Playwright, Protractor, and you can keep naming it like TestCafe and many other tools available on the market. A lot of different tools are actually evolving on the JavaScript language. So it is kind of growing a lot, and this language is also kind of getting very, very important. And there are so many different tools available just for this language binding. So if you're going to get into automation, then probably you need to categorize yourself and identify yourself that which language you need to be strong in and which tool that you can choose to get into automation. And then enthusiasm to break the code. So this is also one of the most key important factor, not just for automation testing, basically, it is for the whole quality assurance department itself. You need to first of all identify how you can test your application. At the same time, you also need to understand how you can break the system. So we should have a mentality to break the system we are testing. Breaking the system is not in a wrong way, rather good way to think of testing the application. Like an end user will never attempt to do so. So I just missed that never over there. So like an end user will never attempt to do an operation, and at the same time an end user will ever do the same operation. So this is how you can identify how you can break your system, by doing some of the most common way and some of the most uncommon way of breaking the systems. And it's also getting common these days that a person who is recruited for an automation testing, he tends to be doing just the automation testing, forgetting he is a gatekeeper of the quality of the product. It's highly important that even being an automated test engineer, we're still here to improve the software quality that we are testing, not writing yet another software to test the software. So these are some of the most important things that you need to be understanding before actually getting into automation. And then the final thought is redo learning, which is very, very important, because redo learning is one of the most important key factor of the agile world of today, because there are so many technology change and shift happening. So you're not going to stick with just one programming language or tool that you have learned. You need to keep redoing your learning every time there is going to be a change. There are high chances that once you are very proficient with one automation testing tool, the tool might get completely obsolete in a few years. For example, QTP. I was using that QTP from 2006 to all the way to 2009, and it's completely gone now. Even though it exists in the market, nobody's actually using it. At least the companies I have seen the recent times. Nowadays, there are many automation testing tools coming into the market, and each and every tool has their own way of testing the applications. Hence, if a particular tool does not fit your business need, then probably you should be ready to learn another new tool, which is almost like you are redoing a job to get the job done. So these are the key questions that you need to ask before you can actually get into the automation. Now, let's talk about the actual question, which is, where should I start? So if you have this 4 questions answered initially, then you are very clear to get the answer for your actual question. Where should I start? You can see these are the answers that you actually get while you need to get into the automation testing. So I have made a quick slide on all of them and quickly walk through what I really mean. Record and playback. So if you're going to get into automation testing, this is the first place that you need to actually get into. Let's take this as a scenario. So let's say you have no idea about automation testing and you are getting into a company and you're going to explore a new tool. Then probably record and playback is going to be one of the first helpful feature that you can see in most of the automation testing tools right now. So this is the best place to learn and play around with the automation testing tool that you're going to work with. Selenium has a record and playback tool like Selenium IDE. Similarly, there are many automation testing tools like TestProject, Katalon Studio, Cypress, and all these tools has record and playback in it. And the good thing about the record and playback is the code which is generated and exported by these tools will give you a very high level picture of how the code can be written using that particular tool, and how the identifiers can be identified of an application using that particular tool. So this is also one of the most beautiful thing that you can do with the record and playbacks. And there are some tools these days which also generates a more sophisticated refactored code which helps testers to easily get around the tool and write the best practice course. For example, TestProject. If you have seen my recent YouTube live stream, you would have seen creator of TestProject who was talking about the record and playback and how the code can be generated, which is kind of pretty cool, right? The code was very, very neat and it can be used even for your production grade testing. So this should be your first place to start with automation, which is record and playback. And then building from the generated code. You can take that as a template for the next level of your automation testing. So you can start building your code from there. So recorded codes are in any means cannot be used for a long-term project because they are just recorded code, guys. there will be a lot of duplicate codes which starts making you sick while you see how hard it will be while you identify or modify the code even for a simple operation like a looping operation. For instance, if you want to perform a login within an application like 10 times with different combinations of data, if you try to do the record and playback for that, you cannot keep duplicating the same operation like 10 times. Rather, you can just write a simple for loop, you can parameterize the code, and then you can see how the code actually works. So all those kind of operation, you start to realize that the generated code from the tool is not much sophisticated enough for your daily driver operation. Well, you then realize that it is also important to understand the automation testing tools API, which are something which is going to make the testing even more efficient that you are doing rather using the actual generated code. So now API documentation of the testing product that you are going to be using is going to be one of the most important place that you can look with. Well, I'm saying API documentation right now. The reason being, nowadays, most of the testing tools has a very clear documentation. At least there are some working examples in their GitHub repo and stuffs which are very, very handy. Some of the tools like the Cypress and Selenium and Puppeteer, I've seen the documentation is pretty awesome. Hence, you may need to go into those documentation of the product's API and libraries and understand how the tools actually works and what are the different shortcuts and methods you can actually use to make your testing easier and write less lines of code. This is the API documentations, guys. This is how you can actually explore the automation testing tool in more detailed fashion. Of course, for a starter, there requires a more guidelines like how you can actually use that tool, not just by reading through this API documentation. That's why we are here. You can just go ahead to the Execute Automations of a YouTube channel or the Udemy courses of Execute Automation, where you can see there are so many courses which I have discussed, like close to 37 courses free available in YouTube and 25 courses in Udemy, and almost many courses in Udemy are also free, which is also available in YouTube. So that's the reason we are here for you to help how you can get into the automation testing tools. Well, once you read these API documentations and the help from us, like YouTube channels as well as from the Udemy courses, you then start writing more scenarios. But more scenarios increases more complexity in the code. So once you figure out the API documentation and understand how to write more scenarios in a more efficient manner, you can start writing more scenarios. That's why you're actually exploring this automation testing tools is all about. But once you start writing more scenarios, your tests become more and more complex to maintain if there is no best practice patterns or frameworks in place. So I'm talking about frameworks here, which is something very, very important for any automation tester. So before you get into this automation testing, just don't start thinking about automation framework. And I have seen people straight away talking about automation testing frameworks, even actually getting the essence of what automation testing is all about. So that's the reason I have put this almost like pretty close to the end of this particular discussion about the automation framework, because this is not that important, guys. This is important for sure. But first of all, without understanding the automation, if you start talking about framework, then that's going to be very, very confusing to get the real essence of the framework itself. So frameworks. In a high level, automation frameworks are the best way to organize, maintain, and extend your test automation code. But it's very important to understand that once you write an extendable framework, it's going to be used by a lot of people within multiple teams. Hence, it should be considered more like a tool or a software that you are developing within your organization. So anybody who is going to use or consume your framework, like a DLL file or a jar file or even a JS file, make sure that it is shipped as an automation testing software or a library within your company or an organization so that anybody can actually use that. And these discussions are kind of very, very vague, and I don't really want to get into this discussion, at least for this particular getting started with automation video. That's the reason there are many different courses I have created in Udemy as well as in YouTube, where you can learn how you can create the frameworks for many automation testing tools like Appium, Selenium, Xamarin.UI Test, REST Sharp, Coder.UI, Protractor, and many different language bindings as well. So this is about the framework. And next up is the CICD for running and shipping the code. This is the most important thing that you will encounter while your automation testing gets bigger. So CICD to run your test code is the next big operation a tester needs to do once the automation test code is ready and now ready for the execution. So there are many different tools available for this as well. The continuous integration and continuous delivery plays a key role for testing the application which is going to be shipped to production to the actual customer who is going to use your product. So this CI/CD is one of the key things that you need to be understanding about. So there are many different tools available for that as well, like Azure DevOps, Jenkins, Dockers, Kubernetes, and many different other tools which I have already discussed in YouTube as well as in Udemy courses, where these continuous integration and continuous delivery plays a key role to deploy and test your application. So again, if you're going to get into this automation testing field, make sure that not just the automation testing tools and the languages are going to be helpful, and even these kind of tools which are like an ancillary tool for the automation is also important. Earlier, while I started my career in automation testing, there was just Jenkins and Team Foundation Server, and even the source control management was very, very poor. But right now the tools are very, very sophisticated, and these tools and technologies are readily available for you to explore. Most of them are free as well. And finally, once you have this CI/CD and all those stuffs in place, the test automation reporting plays a key role as well. So you as a tester should have this automation testing report just to showcase as an evidence of your test automation execution happened within the CI/CD pipeline. So this shows that how your test has executed and how you have made the quality improvement progress and all those stuff. So yes, you again need to learn some other ancillary tools such as Extent reporting or Allure reporting or even Maven reporting, Mocha Awesome reportings and stuff. Again, we have discussed most of them in our Execute Automation YouTube channel, and they are also available completely for free. So again, for your big question, where should I start automation? That's a vague question, guys. I cannot directly answer this question in one line or maybe like one paragraph. I have to actually give a more detailed explanation of actually how anybody can get into automation by first understanding what are the different techniques and toolings and languages and practices available in the industry right now, so that you can understand how you can get into automation. So if you have any questions, you can find me at karthik@techgeek.co.in, or you can also find me in YouTube channel, Udemy courses, LinkedIn, and of course Execute Automation website, where all of these informations are already available. If you can keep exploring that, if not, just send me an email to the email ID. I'm happy to answer all those questions. So once again, thank you very much for watching this video. Stay safe, maintain the social distancing, and have a great day.